Awesome. Hi, everybody. I'm Jacob. I'm a GP at Superscript, which is an early-stage crypto-native fund based out of Singapore, New York. Today, we've got a great panel on to talk about restaking. It's basically some of the investors, like Min and Adam, who have invested very early into Eigenlayer. Alan, who is building a liquid restaking token and protocol on Eigenlayer, and Tina from Eigenlayer and representing the protocol itself. So I know there's been a lot of hype. There's been a lot of presentations about what restaking is, but for the benefit of those who are perhaps watching on video or streaming in, why don't we just orient them? What is restaking, right? Like, what's a simple way to just define it?
Yeah, I'll start. So restaking is this concept of providing crypto economic security to a network in the form of staking assets. And why this is huge is because now there's LRT protocols that lower the barrier to participate in these proof of staking systems, which previously was impossible.
Great, I'll go next. First of all, I want to just thank the organizers, Wanxiang, Blockchain Labs, and Hashkey for the hospitality this week. It's been incredible, and excited to do the panel with you folks. I'll try to keep it real sweet and short here, which is security rental. Two words. Imagine that all of us here are co-founders of Hong Kong Chain, and we're thinking hard about bringing our new network to market. And we're faced with this trade-off, this critical trade-off. Do we want to take a big chunk of our network and pay for security from validators and monitor them and find them, manage them, or perhaps, much easier, could buy or rent some security off the shelf? Welcome to Eigenlayer, a protocol that allows networks and protocols to get to market faster with better security guarantees.
Awesome. That's a great definition. I think what we'll try and boil it down to is some of the basics as well, right? So if you have some Ethereum, you can stake it if you have 32 ETH, and you earn your interest, right? Then there are other options that you can do, like liquid staking, like putting into Lido. You get a return. You don't have to have 32 ETH to do that. And what we see with Eigenlayer is that you can take some of this ETH, and then you can restake it to get more yield and support other services. Is there maybe an even simpler way to think about this from a Web 2 angle, right? What's the analogy on the Web 2 side?
That sounds like a layup question for me. I don't know. Thank you, Jacob. So let's go back to 2006 before Amazon launched S3, on-demand storage. You're a web developer working in your basement for some company. You have an idea for an app. You want to test it. How are you going to do it? You might have to buy some servers. You might have to go to a company like Rackspace, which was a predecessor to cloud providers. You have to pay upfront minimum guarantees to put your servers in there and get hosted, be able to host your software. Or post S3, you could get all that access. You could go on the web, put your credit card down, and get access to compute on demand. After that, you had an explosion of web apps. And in our opinion, blockchains, have security, and getting security is really hard. Like, how do you convince someone to sell their monetary asset for something that is not a proven monetary asset yet? You have to encourage them to do that with a lot of yield, a lot. Where's that yield coming from for unproven blockchain? It's coming from investors. It's coming from founders. It's dilution. And all that requires coordination. It's super difficult. But what if you could go online and just pull some security to support your blockchain? We expect an explosion of blockchains because of this. And really, it's good. It would be good to understand the crowd in this room. But if you're a developer, there's no better time, in our opinion, to think about building a blockchain.
Got it. Nice. So, Min, I'm curious, right? You're one of the earlier and biggest supporters of Eigenlayer. What was your thesis? What promise did you see in the opportunity of what it presents in the Ethereum ecosystem and blockchain and wider?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think one thing that we always focus on like restaking for EigenLayer, but it's an extremely complex like protocol. Like restaking is really just the tip of the iceberg with the smart contract. But in order to get everything, the entire system to work, in order to achieve the vision that Adam described in terms of doing away with all these microservices, you have other elements relating to slashing, payments, verification, and all of those like different components, I think really spoke to us because it then actually allows you to create a real platform ecosystem, on top of a base layer that is very, very unique. I can't really think of too many protocols that have such a large vision. When we first spoke to Sriram about his ideas, I think the two things that stuck out to us was, just based on, we believe that, as Ethereum moved more to proof of stake, there would be emergence of a risk-free rate in crypto with the Ethereum staking yield. And I think the staking rate would also go a lot higher. And like, what can you really do with that? You'll see a lot of financialization. With financialization of this new primitive, firstly, like everyone has different sort of risk preferences, and you'll see a stratification of risk. And that's why I think we also have a lot of LRTs, like, where people decide, like, hey, I actually want to take on more risk, or you can actually, choose to restake. People actually are self-sovereign, and instead of rehypothecation, restaking, I think, is like, very much user-driven, and it was something that is new. Like, how do we imagine leveraging a system that comes from the people who actually own that collateral instead of just depositing it in a bank and, you don't actually know what the bank is doing with your deposits. This time you actually decide on your own. So a lot of that, I think, is extremely Ethereum aligned, and it's also very inevitable. It just shows development of, the financial system that is operating on top of Ethereum, and also the security system. I think, when you sort of allow protocols to increase the cost of corruption, like, through security, like what can you actually enable with that? What sort of innovation was previously not possible because not everyone can get to, 100 million in like, sort of market cap within 2 months, and how do you actually like bootstrap that cold start problem? So EigenLayer was very compelling from that regard.
Got it. So trying to distill all of the great points that have been raised so far and bring it back to understanding what EigenLayer is, right? So you've got Ethereum, you can stake it. You can stake it into a liquid staking protocol. You can take that and you can put it into EigenLayer, right? And that stake can then be used to secure other AVSs or other services, right? Those services will pay a yield. And basically, you as the ETH staker get additional yield for all of these services. Of course, they come with a different set of risks, but this is sort of how I think I've distilled what you guys have said. I just want to finish up on that question around the opportunity one more time and frame it. So right now, there's about 120 million ETH in circulation. As of today, that's about $440 billion worth of value. I'm going to put you guys on the spot. How much of that do you think is staked right now? Like, what percentage of that?
Yeah, I'm the macro guy. I look at the inflows and outflows. So I think we're sitting at 27%. And I actually think it was 20%, or a little bit less than 20% when EigenLayer launched. And I actually know, I think in the next question you're going to ask, but I'll let these guys chime in on it.
Okay, so do you guys agree with his number? Because he was a very specific number that he picked, 27%. So do you think it's wrong, or do you guys have another number in mind of how much of ETH is staked at the moment?
I think that sounds right to me.
I'm not going against Alan.
Neither.
Okay, that's right. When you give it an exact number, it's very hard to argue. Now, what percentage do you think of ETH is restaked right now?
3%?
Alan, you're not allowed to answer because I know you know the answer to this, but I want to hear everyone else's answer.
I think, yeah, I would say between like 2 to 4% of ETH is restaked, because like that's around like 27%. That's like 32 like million ETH. Is that correct?
I was going to say 5%, so yeah.
Okay, so the person from EigenLayer is the most bullish. Adam was very close. Min was the closest, but she gave a range. So I'll discount that answer. It's actually closer to about 2.2% right now. So just pulling those numbers back, we have $400 billion odd of ETH in USD. 27% of that is staked, either in Lido or Coinbase on exchanges or in a native node. And 2% is staked, or is restaked, right? So is that a good way to potentially look at some of the potential and growth of EigenLayer restaking as a primitive?
The question is opportunity for who? I think there's really two stakeholders here, investors and developers. From a developer perspective, that's some really good security to go build blockchains. And we need a lot more blockchains. You know, Sriram talks a lot about microservices and looking at the thousands of services offered by Amazon and Google. And all of those things can be replicated with decentralized trust. And so that's a huge opportunity for entrepreneurs to build services and for us to have better applications that utilize those services. Applications built on protocols that allow people to own a piece of the internet. Now, from the investor side, you know, I live in Los Angeles. I live in a very conservative neighborhood of people that think I'm crazy for working in blockchain. A lot of people, the recommendation when you get started is go into real estate. Okay, it's very expensive to buy real estate in Los Angeles, but the goal for everyone is passive income. You know, how can you work hard but maybe make enough to buy a condo and rent it out and earn some passive income and buy a second condo? You know, what you can't. Who knows what the price of Ethereum is going to do, or even Bitcoin? But the fact is, if you can own these assets and now you can earn passive income, it's a tremendous opportunity for young people to have be enabled and have be empowered to realize their dreams and not wait around for some universal basic income. So I just think it's a tremendous opportunity for small investors to buy some ETH. The first thing I do when I talk to my friends who don't know blockchain, I probably shouldn't say this on a live stream, is I show them how to buy ETH, download MetaMask, buy ETH, download a VPN, and go on a blockchain, earn some yield. And that's an incredible thing. And they're going to wake up one day and, you know, as they learn more about restaking, they can, you know, run their ETH like a casino, or they can run it like an institutional grade lender. It's up to them.
Got it. So it sounds like it's just opening up a world of possibilities, right? I guess a question that I had then is, we've heard all of the wonderful things that Ethereum staking and then the next evolution restaking brings. But nothing good ever comes without some element of risk here. So what are we missing, right? This sounds too good to be true to unlock too many things. What are we giving away? What's the risks with restaking?
Do we want to go into the whole marketplace? Okay, to start, the staking risk is that there's a trust assumption. So you have to trust, or there's a level of risk associated with stakers or the restakers that are participating in the outflow and this volume that we're discussing. And also the risk that they have to trust these operators with the computation and running these nodes. Then we have operator risk. And as an operator, you have risk associated with trusting the ABSs that you're opting into, and that they have verifiable code that isn't buggy for the services that they're running, the microservices that Adam was referencing. And then there's also ABS risk. So as an ABS, you want to know how much stake or of the total stake distribution is going to be delegated to you, or you specifically have oversight for. So I think in this three-sided marketplace, there are a lot of risks, but most of them come down to trust assumptions. So as the system becomes more permissionless, it's just about finding solutions to minimize those risks.
I'd like to piggyback there. I've got two comments. I want to speak to risks, and then actually want to quickly come back to Adam, if that's okay.
Yeah, please.
Great. Yeah, so when we were underwriting this investment EigenLayer at Blockchain Capital, so I have a dual role. So I sit at Blockchain Capital as an investor. I'm also building at Rio. I'm also involved with an operator that's running infrastructure. I'm a personal user, friends with a lot of the EigenLayer team, so I see a lot of the risks. So I just want to quickly walk through. So there's just your classic execution risk, right? Can the startup figure it out, navigate the idea maze? We've got regulatory risk, market risk, technical risk, platform risk, competitive risk. There's so many axes of risk we must consider. And I think in crypto, in a bull market, our industry's favorite thing to do is forget about the risk and just look at the income opportunity, price appreciation, income generation, yield. And if this is going to work, all of us have to scrutinize these risks and make the best risk-adjusted decisions. Now, of course, I'm talking my book. I'm the risk guy, and that's what we do at the LRT. So quickly wanted to identify a few more. And then second, briefly, Adam, you talked about investors and developers. And I just want to zoom out from that. And how I think about it is supply and demand. And this is a good mental model for the group here to understand with EigenLayer. There's this build versus buy, which we talked about, and then there's this fear and greed mental model. So on the supply side of capital, right, the investors that Adam talked about, what they're looking for, these depositors, these users, is to make their ETH a more productive asset, right, via restaking. That's the income generation that Adam spoke about. And then on the demand side, these developers, these builders, it's a fear-based set, right? They're looking for more security. So two things to keep in mind with EigenLayer: build versus buy that the developer that are on the demand side faces, and then fear and greed. Just two quick ones.
Got it. So we basically speed ran through a whole bunch of risks, right? Technical risk, the operator risk, AVS risk. I don't know if someone used the word rehypothecation, but I didn't hear it, so I'm going to bring it up. This is one of the controversial risks that people have felt the need to discuss. And I'm going to frame it in the following way. And you tell me what you guys think about it and whether it is a real risk or not. But there is a case to say, so what Alan does as a liquid restaking protocol is that he will take some ETH, and then that protocol will decide with its operators which AVS to secure, right? Which of these services to secure. Now the question is, are you taking that ETH to secure one AVS, or are you taking that ETH to secure multiple AVSs? Because if you take that ETH and secure multiple AVSs, and one of them is a bad actor, and that ETH gets slashed or gets disappeared or put somewhere off the protocol, then suddenly you've lost security on a bunch of different AVSs and whatever that ETH was securing before. So what do you think about that potential rehypothecation or shared use of security risk?
I'm happy to speak to that. Maybe we can tag team this one.
Yeah.
So I think it's no surprise the approach we're taking at Rio. Many of you are investors or friends in the industry. You see that we're taking our time. I think there's really two ways to go to market in crypto. And some of the team members of my team, they've been in the space for a decade and have the scars to prove it. And we've learned that you can run the short-term strategy and run the long-term strategy. So in the short term, you use the powerful incentives that crypto can provide, right? Tokens and airdrops and points and key opinion leaders, and you can shape deposits and shape behavior. And what's happening right now in this emergent landscape of restaking and shared security is you're seeing a lot of LRTs that are reusing the security, right, to go and do these deals with AVSs. That's exciting, right? That's what's driving so much excitement about generating additional income, additional yield. And I think it fits well with the playbook in a bull market. And then there's a long-term approach, right? This is the one we're taking. You take your time. You don't cut corners. You're very thoughtful around how you're going to manage this infinite entropy that EigenLayer can provide with unlimited amounts of operator configurations, unlimited amounts of AVSs, unlimited amounts of collateral types that can be restaked. And so what you'll see us do personally is run this playbook where we're going to have very strong opinions at Rio DAO, Rio Foundation, around what operators, what AVS, et cetera. And you're not going to see us going too far out on the risk curve because it's early.
But this is somewhat of a permissionless world that we live in, right? You might take a responsible approach. Others might not because they can spin up an LRT, and if they've got enough momentum by offering yield and everything, they might take a less risk-adjusted approach. So isn't that risk still there?
But that risk itself comes from the total stake that an AVS has access to. I don't think the LRTs themselves are bad because they lower the barrier to entry for people that can't natively restake or run eigenpods or aren't running validators. So I do think they're really great for exposing the market to a whole number of retail consumers that wouldn't otherwise. And I think the real risk that I see is the secondaries that are on top of the LRTs, the leveraging protocols that are on top of the LRTs, and these sort of DeFi primitives that are being built on top of LRTs that are unsafe for users.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but it's still double opt-in for validating, right? It's still double opt-in, correct?
That is on the roadmap, yes.
Okay, so it's on the roadmap for double opt-in. So, you can't stop irresponsible behavior, okay? Like, people can do crazy things.
Yeah, and that's not native to restaking as well.
People
Like,
can, someone can
anything.
walk into this conference and yell fire, and everyone can run it. Like, there could be a stampede. Like, horrible things could happen, okay? Like, there's rules against that. You go to jail, okay? And you can be prosecuted. Like, as an investor, as this space develops, it's wonderful that, as Alan said, this Cambrian explosion of LRTs coming in, supporting these projects, and helping them attract liquidity, to attract more liquidity. And these operators, these AVSs can choose who they want to work with, and they can build responsible validator sets. And as an investor who might utilize an LRT or have my own fund restake, I can do the work to look at who the validators are and what's the risk is to that protocol, which can incentivize the AVSs to choose a diverse set of validators. And my hope is that there's a bunch of services that come about that either EigenLayer pays for, or I pay for, or AVSs pay for, that help me evaluate that risk. In the bond world, it's called S&P. It's called Moody's. All that stuff's going to get developed.
Mm-hmm. I think one of the other great things about crypto as well is that it's very community driven. So, and that plays a lot into the influence and the right kind of practices that should be happening. And a lot of that can drive this. But Min, what do you think about all of this?
So I think if you're a rational actor who is restaking, like, people should be thinking about it, like, what is your risk-adjusted yield, like, minus the slashing risk, right? Like, and if you're an irrational actor, then you're going to be subject to market forces, and that's very much, like, I think, premise in the, like, principles of Ethereum alignment. And I do applaud the EigenLayer team for really working to create a permissionless, incredibly neutral platform, because you could easily come out of with lots of gates and lots of thresholds and lots of different committees, but you actually do inhibit the explosion of innovation that happens. I think a lot of the risks have been well discussed and well documented, and we're also seeing a lot of great stuff bubbling up from the community. I mean, last year, Vitalik wrote a piece on not overloading Ethereum consensus. Gauntlet just released a potential framework for selecting AVSs, and it's nice to sort of see all the participants in the network actually discuss and bubble up from a bottoms-up basis, what is the right behavior in this network, as opposed for it to be imposed top-down, which I think a lot of people in this space wouldn't like anyway.
Amazing. So, what we've covered now is that this is a very exciting new primitive. It's going to open up a lot of creativity and let people run services, but also rely on a decentralized network and trustlessness to power what they do. So, how should people who want to get involved with EigenLayer, where do they start? Whether they are investors, users, developers who are building, where do we get involved with restaking and EigenLayer and that whole ecosystem?
Go Adam.
I was going to let Alan do it because you're you have a
sure.
perspective of an operator,
I can speak to this.
From institutional, but also a retail perspective, right?
Yeah. So I think if somebody is facing down restaking, they want to understand what's going on. First, look back in history. So history doesn't always repeat itself, but people do, and we have a great litany of experience and wisdom from merge mining back in the day to Avalanche, Cosmos, Polkadot, L2s. There's a lot of ink spilled on the risks here, what works and what doesn't. So that's the first place I would send you. Obviously, if you're a retail user, you don't have time, you're just individual, you don't have time to go read through all the citations, but that's, if you're an investor, if you're a very large allocator, look at what's worked and what hasn't in the past. And then second, of course, if you are an allocator, whether it's retail or the kinds of customers that we target, very large family offices, institutional clients, institutional depositors, spend the time. Read the talks, talk with Tina and their team, understand all the trade-offs that are being made here, and then you have this decision to make between, do you choose an LRT and accept the trade-offs, or you choose a validator, an operator business directly, or perhaps you go through a prime broker or custodian. There's trade-offs at every single step, and you have to understand these trade-offs. And then last, if you're a dev, or actually I'll leave that one to you.
Yeah, I have so many call to actions for devs. So if you are a dev that's building a consumer app and you want to build a blockchain like Adam was referencing, go to docs.eigenlayer.xyz and go test out our Holsky testnet, and our mainnet testnet will be live this week for EigenDA, and you can deploy your EigenDA app in less than 20 minutes using a rollup as a service. It's kind of like running an EC2 instance and deploying it in an AWS UI. Takes less than 25 minutes, and then you can see how building a blockchain for, let's say, an NFT app, a DeFi app, a gaming app that you're building, not only decreases transaction costs, provides more intuitive development for you as a developer, and then packages it similar to a cloud service provider, and overall improves your developer experience.
Awesome. So we've thrown around a few acronyms, right? LSTs, LRTs, AVSs, and of course AVSs are what Adam's very excited about, allowing people to build whatever they want. What are some of the exciting ones that you guys are most pumped for that are coming out?
I'm very excited about anything that was built in blockchain 1.0 that can be rebuilt as an AVS. So eOracle is coming out soon, and it's a better Oracle. And because people don't need to sell their ETH to validate a new service, they can promise less yield to those validators and therefore offer their service at a much lower cost.
Min, go ahead.
Yeah, I think, following on that, I'm very excited about things that EigenLayer enable that weren't actually possible, or very, very difficult to achieve. And I think, EigenLayer has, in its final form, will enable, get us pretty close to atomic composability. And what you can build with that is really exciting, and it's just difficult to achieve that, outside of the EigenLayer ecosystem. I think aside from that, there are things that were, maybe a bit more challenging from an economic security to bootstrap, like Oracle's Keeper networks. I think there's a lot of, white space for DeFi as well, which definitely I think you see DeFi is actually pretty expensive now to compete for user acquisition in terms of emissions, and I think EigenLayer can really help with that. I think there's a lot of cross-chain opportunities. They're a lot more secure on the verification side. So, linking Ethereum to BTC is something that hasn't really been done in a very seamless way. And I think, personally, we're pretty excited about, EigenLayer being the bridge between the two largest sort of networks in crypto.
We have a database at Rio of 80 different AVSs that we've spoken with or we're tracking. And this is what we do. This is what the Rio DAO is here to do. It's to weigh and measure each of these AVSs, both from a technical feasibility perspective with our operator partners, as well as from a financial feasibility perspective with some of these professional DeFi risk managers that a few of you have mentioned here. And it's exciting. I've been in crypto a long time, and it reminds me a lot of the early days. It's this Cambrian explosion. Right now, we talk about AVSs. In a year, 2 years from today, it'll just be commonplace. Be like, oh, of course you're building an EigenLayer. I think the AVS term will slowly fade. It'll just be, of course you have shared security.
Tina?
The on-chain compliance and the deploy an AVS as a service. 2 quick reasons why. On-chain compliance will bring institutions, and right now I think we have a portion of them, but to make blockchains scale for the masses And for sustainable mainstream applications, that's what will bring them, an on-chain compliance. Athos, one of my favorite ABSs. And then Authentic, that I think Finality also invested in, that's going to lower the barrier to deploy an ABS as a developer.
Well, there you have it, guys. Ethereum as a network is over $400 billion worth in value. That's an immense amount of security. Restaking, EigenLayer is unlocking that for sort of endless possibilities of services that the guys have shared today. So with that, we'd love to let you thank our wonderful guests. And that ends the panel. Thank you.
Thank you, Jacob.
Guys.